Welcome to Magic Boy fans.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're heading way back, over 1500 years ago, ancient Sri Lanka.
King Dhatusena's time.
Exactly. And we've got this incredible story. It's about big ambitions, engineering, well, maybe a bit of hubris, and the most unlikely consultant you could imagine.
A pregnant nanny goat.
You got it, a pregnant nanny goat.
And, this isn't just some charming folktale. It's captured in the Ballad of the Nanny Goat, and it actually gives us real insight into, well, how massive projects like this got built back then.
Right, the practical reality.
Yeah, and it really hammers home this lesson about humility versus, just sticking to the textbook, rigid expertise.
That's exactly what we want to unpack in this deep dive. The Jaya Ganga Canal, it's still seen as this monumental feat of ancient hydraulic engineering.
Absolutely.
King Dhatusena had this huge vision. Take the water's wide from that massive reservoir, Kala Wewa.
Kala Wewa's shining side, as the ballad says.
Yeah, exactly. And channel it for miles and miles across these dry plains. This wasn't just about watering crops, it was fundamental.
Oh, completely. You have to understand, water security back then, that was stability. That was life. If Dhatusena pulled this off, he wasn't just building a canal. He was building his kingdom, his civilization.
And failure.
Failure meant famine, weakness, maybe even the end of his rule. The stakes were incredibly high.
Okay, so huge stakes, big vision, but the project right out of the gate just stalls.
Dead in the water, so to speak.
Yeah. The source material tells us they threw the best minds, all the resources at it, and nothing. So the big question is, why did all these sophisticated experts fail, and how did simple observation, almost folklore, crack the code?
Let's unpack that, starting with why their fancy methods didn't work.
Well, what's really interesting is how these royal engineers, described as proud and wise, tackled it. They weren't incompetent. They were using the absolute best technology available to them.
The ballad mentions them measuring the earth with sharpened eyes.
And mapping it out with golden thread. Now, golden thread, we can probably take that as like a metaphor, right? For expensive, top-down, theoretical planning, maybe even literally using fine instruments.
Exactly. Think sophisticated leveling tools for the era, geometry. Trying to impose this perfect straight-line mathematical ideal onto land that's anything but flat or uniform.
Like trying to draw a straight line over rolling hills.
Precisely. And that reliance on just the theory, on the math alone, that's where they got stuck. See, when you're building a canal that needs a consistent, gentle slope over many, many miles,
Kilometers.
even the tiniest error in your leveling, maybe your instrument isn't perfectly horizontal or the ground settles a tiny bit.
Yeah.
These minuscule errors, they add up, they compound.
But the cumulative error, right.
Yeah.
So over a short distance, fine. But over the whole length of the canal.
It throws everything off. The ballad says the water slept where it should have spread. It just pooled. It wouldn't flow consistently because the gradient they'd calculated on paper didn't match the reality on the ground.
The slope wasn't actually there, or not consistently anyway.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a classic problem, isn't it? They were so focused on their models, their golden thread, that they couldn't see the actual solution the land offered.
They were looking for a path that fit their theory.
Right. They searched the hills, the ballad says, but found no path for the stream to go. Why? Because the real path, the natural path, didn't look like their neat diagrams. They were trying to force the landscape to fit their plan.
You can imagine the frustration and the embarrassment, probably. The king's waiting, the builders are waiting.
Everyone's getting weary, whispers started, something's wrong. They're just completely stumped by the physical reality.
So, okay, the experts are stuck, the high-tech approach failed. What happens next? How do they break this deadlock?
Well, this is where the story takes that incredible turn towards humility. A figure walks into the court who couldn't be more different from the royal engineers.
The farmer bare of feet.
Yeah, a guy who works the land, knows the mud, knows the animals, not a scholar, not an engineer.
And he comes in, bold as anything, claiming he knows the way. But his proof isn't calculations. He says he saw a way just by watching.
A pregnant goat.
Right.
A pregnant goat walks every day, he says, and that's how he knows the path.
Okay, stop right there. Imagine you're one of those royal engineers. You've spent years studying. You've got the king's budget, the best tools. And this farmer walks in and says, forget your maps, just follow the goat.
It must have sounded utterly ridiculous, preposterous. They're dealing with complex hydraulics, budgets, logistics, and he's talking about basically animal behavior. A pregnant one at that, probably trying to find the easiest possible route.
I mean, the reaction is predictable, isn't it? The courtmen laughed.
Of course they did. Look at him. He plows the mud where cattle go.
Yeah.
What could he possibly know about large-scale engineering? There's a huge class bias there, too.
Definitely. And a knowledge bias, right? The
Yeah.
idea that practical, hands-on, maybe even like intuitive knowledge could possibly beat formal, written-down learning.
Yeah.
Unthinkable for them.
Totally unthinkable. But, and this is the crucial pivot, King Dhatusena, he sees past it.
He doesn't laugh.
He listens. He recognizes, perhaps, that the problem isn't a lack of intelligence, but maybe the wrong kind of intelligence applied so far. He needed observation, not just calculation.
And he comes out with that amazing line.
Yeah, the line that sort of echoes down through history, truth may walk where goats may sleep. Wow.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the king's insight here is profound. He's essentially saying, okay, our theoretical models failed. Let's try an organic model, a living system.
He was willing to admit his elite team was stuck and trust this farmer's observation. That decision, that willingness to be humble and switch track entirely. You could argue that was the real engineering feat here.
The human engineering, almost, overcoming pride and prejudice.
Absolutely. That choice changed everything.
Whoa.
The engineers presumably swallowing a massive amount of pride. Oh yeah, they had to literally go out and follow this goat. The ballad says they traced her steps through vale and field, through thorn and stone the trail revealed.
It sounds so primitive compared to their golden threads and instruments. But what was the goat actually doing that made its path the right one?
Think about it from the goat's perspective. Heavily pregnant, wanting to conserve energy above all else.
Right. Maximum efficiency, minimum effort.
Exactly. She's not thinking about the destination miles away. She's thinking about the next few steps. She instinctively finds the path of absolute least resistance. Avoiding a steep bit here, skirting a rocky patch there, finding the gentlest possible incline or decline. She's making constant, tiny, real-time adjustments to the terrain.
So while the engineers were trying to find one single, perfect, smooth slope over miles, which didn't really exist,
the goat was effectively creating a path made of thousands of tiny, naturally optimal segments. Each little bit flowed gently into the next.
okay, so it wasn't a straight line at all.
Not at all. It would have meandered, followed the contours. The ballad calls it a secret path, soft and true.
Whoa.
Organic, not imposed. And following that path gave them the engineering miracle they needed.
Which was?
The gradient. The slope of the canal bed, it turned out to be incredibly, unbelievably gentle and consistent.
The source says it was so fine, the balance slight. We're talking, what, a tiny drop over a long distance?
Tiny, maybe 6 inches over a mile, perhaps even less. It's a gradient so subtle that, honestly, the Royal Engineers probably couldn't have reliably measured or maintained it over that distance with the tools they had. Their instruments weren't fine enough for that level of sustained precision.
Wow.
And this near flatness, this minimal slope, is the key to that famous illusion associated with the Jaya Ganga.
The water seeming to climb the height? Or
Yeah.
just sit there motionless?
Exactly. You look at it, especially stretches of it, and it looks like a perfectly still, level body of water, like a long, thin lake.
How does that work? How does water look still but actually flow?
Well, imagine a really, really long swimming pool. If you lower one end by just, say, an inch over its entire length, the water will flow towards the lower end. But because the slope is so incredibly gentle, the surface looks completely flat to your eye.
Okay, I see.
The goat instinctively found the path that achieved this near-perfect, almost invisible downhill run. The water is moving steadily, but the movement is so gentle, and the surface tension over that vast surface makes it look serene, almost static. It's flowing in perfect harmony with gravity, not fighting it.
So it's not magic, it's just incredibly subtle engineering dictated by nature.
You got it. A river of craft and secret design, as the ballad puts it. Flowing by faith and dream, maybe, but really flowing because they finally listened to the land, guided by the goat.
And the project gets finished, water flows, the kingdom benefits, and the farmer.
He just bowed humbly. His practical wisdom, derived from observation, had succeeded where theory had failed. Job done.
It's such a powerful story. The Jaya Ganga is still there, a physical testament.
A massive one. But the bigger legacy, perhaps, is that lesson. The ballad says the path revealed the maker's will, meaning the optimal design was inherent in the landscape itself. It just needed finding.
Through patience and observation.
And humility. It really was a gift of wisdom, earned through humility.
This whole deep dive, it really makes you think about where we put our trust, doesn't it? Is it always in the complex models, the golden threads? Or is there value in the simple, observed reality, the goat's path?
This raises an important question, I think, that's relevant way beyond ancient canals. It applies to, well, anything complex. Designing software, running a business, even tackling personal challenges.
How so?
Well, do we sometimes default to complex tools and aggressive, forceful solutions precisely because the problem seems complex? And in doing so, do we just create more resistance, more friction, maybe even compound the errors like those ancient engineers?
Yeah, we assume the solution has to be as complicated as the problem feels.
But the Jaya Ganga suggests maybe the opposite is true sometimes. The water flows beautifully because the route is soft and free. It follows the path of least resistance. Maybe the most elegant, effective solutions aren't found by forcing our will onto a situation.
But by patiently observing, finding that natural flow.
Finding the path of least resistance that already exists. Iterating, adjusting, like a goat did.
So the final thought for you, listening, what goats might be showing you the way forward in the complex problems you're facing?
Yeah. Is there a simple, unassuming, maybe even slightly absurd-looking path that you've dismissed? Maybe the answer isn't in a more complex plan, but in humbling ourselves enough to just trace the steps that already seem to work, even if we don't fully understand why at first.
Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.